You're listening to the Crack It Cold podcast, where we interview inspiring individuals and ask them what they do and why they do it. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Crack It Cold, where you can find other creative media projects.
Today on can number 7, we'll be chatting with Shad White.
Welcome to Crack It Cold. We are very excited today to have my good friend, Shad White. Shad, welcome to Crack It Cold.
Guys.
Yeah, welcome, man.
Thanks for
Glad to
being
have you.
on.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, man. I was looking forward to it all week. I was kind of nervous. I didn't know what we were going to talk about entirely, and
Yeah.
you shot over some of those questions and stuff, and I was like, okay, I think I got this.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So with that being said, to start off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do in general? Like, where are you at in life right now? What kind of things are you involved in? And we're just going to start from there.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I kind of do a lot of things, wear a lot of different hats, I feel like.
Yeah.
I do videography and photography for both sports and weddings, kind of along those lines. Not like an official business, like LLC type anything. I just kind of do it on the side for fun. But I do that. I coach basketball at Mooresville High School, their middle school team. And then I coach cross country varsity at Decatur Central as well.
Nice.
But my day job, I work as a business operations manager and a marketing kind of team member to a couple different brands. One's called Iceman High. It's a clothing streetwear brand. Actually launching officially next month. And then for Glitch Energy. So
There you
do
go.
a lot of fun stuff.
I've seen the ads that you've been a part of with
Dude,
some of
it's
their
been-
videos.
It's been wild.
What'd you
Very
say that
exciting.
was called? Iceman?
Iceman High.
Iceman High?
Iceman High,
So
yeah.
just like street clothing.
Yeah,
That's-
I own that one actually. So
Wow.
I'm launching that. Been kind of working through the last probably 6 or 7 months. Just my brother's co-owning it with me, so he's been cranking out some crazy designs and putting together a storyboard and all this stuff. And
That's so
I've just
cool.
been
That's
kind
very
of
cool.
nailing it down. So
Yeah,
man,
absolutely.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how'd you get started with the video work?
Yeah, so I want to say it's been 5 years. 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend who was on the varsity football team. He was our quarterback. He was a year under me, so I had just graduated. But I used to always put together. My cousin actually played basketball for Indiana Wesleyan, and so I used to go up to their games a lot, and I would film, from my iPhone, just random stuff, 3-point shots or dunks or something, from the stands, and I would put like music over them. And like just make these little weird edits, and I'd put them on my own Instagram and be like, crazy dunk or sick 3-pointer, and I'd tag these guys. And I was always just fascinated by that, and I loved it, and it was just something that I thought was cool, because you see Sports Center, you see all this stuff, and you're like, man, I want to be that.
Yeah.
And I had the chance to go sit courtside at an IU volleyball game. And their libero a couple years back was super cool, and she had this insane jump serve. Like it was wild, like super cool. But I was sitting courtside, so I'm recording this thing on my iPhone, and it was sick, slow motion, had the music edit and everything, and I was like, oh, this is great,
Yeah.
And I actually sent it to her on Instagram, and she loved it, and so she posted it on her page, and it got like 10,000 views
No
and something. And I was
way.
like, oh, I'm the stuff. Like, this is what's it. And then
Shad White production.
yeah, I was like, let's go. And so I was like, I kind of felt good. It's nice. Like, see somebody put out your work. Like, I was like, it's an iPhone
gotta
video.
be
It means nothing. Like, But my friend from the football team in my high school, he said, hey, I see you put these videos out, and I saw that she posted your video, and that was super cool. He's like, what, you ever thought about filming the football team? And I was like, no, man. Like I've never once thought about doing that.
Yeah.
And so I actually reached out to a friend of mine who's a photographer, and I said, hey, do you have an extra camera? Because I know that most photographers, they've got 3 or 4 on set that they've been using for years, and they've always got a second one. And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, do you mind if I borrow it for a couple weeks? And she was kind enough to let me do that. And I started shooting these games with a GoPro that I had and this old Nikon, and just fell in love with it from there. And the parents, the community, like they loved it. And so really just started from then kind of honing in my craft on sports.
Oh, yeah.
But then I'd say it's only been about 3 years since I started weddings. So that's just kind of how I got started. So shout out to Carson. Carson was the one who got me started. He was like, you ever think about this? And I was like, no, I didn't. So
that's so, and like you provide so much exposure for those, like your friends and everything too.
Yeah,
like those kids. Like
it's crazy. And I've been very blessed as far as our school goes at Mooresville, because we went to semi-state and lost to a tough Roncalli team. They were just phenomenal. But I got to film them and a couple other teams. I got to shoot Covenant Christian state football game that they won last year or 2 years ago, and it was just incredible. And so our athletes in Mooresville are super cool. Our quarterback, his name's Nick Patterson, one of the best in the state. I think he was number 2 last year in the state, like crazy bunch of D1 offers. So I've had stellar experience, like actually getting to shoot some crazy athletes who could go to the league at some point. So
have you ever had any like college teams reach out to you about like your video on this kid or like anything, you know what I mean? Anything like that?
Yeah, so I've had a few of the players who have said, hey, these college scouts, they've seen your videos, can you send them a highlight clip that's
awesome.
just me? And I'm like, sure, yeah, I can totally do that. But I'd say the coolest experience in that for me was shooting Covenant Christian state game. One of the players, who's a good friend of mine, his name's Trey Flatt, he actually went and did TJ Watt's celebration. He got a sack on the quarterback from South Adams and did TJ Watt's thing, and I recorded that, and I posted that video, the whole thing on Twitter as their highlights. And so TJ Watt actually saw it.
No way.
Yeah, and he reposted the video and was like, yo, this kid's sick. And I was like,
crazy.
Dude, TJ Watt just shared my video. So that video is on Twitter. It's got like 480,000 views. And I was like, this is wild. Like, no edits, no crazy anything. Like, it's just a video of this kid sacking a quarterback and doing a celebration. So,
dude, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And like in terms of your lifestyle, I mean, Shad, you're a cool dude.
Dude, I appreciate
you're
it.
out here, you're filming, you're editing. Like, it just, one of the things on Crack It Cold that we love to do is just share people's lifestyle.
Yeah,
like
man.
what's
for sure.
What like a real look inside of what
Dude,
it is you
100%.
do, and
Yeah.
so I just want to ask you, like, what's a daily, what does a day in the life of Shad look like? What do you what
Yeah, man.
motivates you?
Yeah, man.
What kind of things do you do throughout your day?
Yeah. So for me, like, faith is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I'm typical morning. I wake up and I'm in my Bible first thing in the morning. I figure if I start my day well, get my mind right, then everything else flows from there. So, I sing on my church's worship team as well. So worship being in my Bible is pretty frequent throughout the week.
Yeah.
So that really fuels me a lot. I got a good group around me. I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was the CEO of McLaren Racing, Zach Brown.
Okay.
He was quoted yesterday during their car launch, and they said, "How do you stay motivated? Like, what is it?" And he said, you got to have great people in your corner, and that's the truth, man. My girlfriend is incredible. She supports me in everything I do. My parents are super awesome, and being able to have a lot of good, supportive people and friends in your corner, you figure out a lot in life really fast.
Wow.
And you're like, man, there's nothing I really can't do. And if I can't do it, I know somebody who can, and they're probably going to be there to help me. So
You're a good man, Shad.
dude, I
Good
appreciate it, man.
And that's really cool that you can recognize that as well, because I feel like a lot of kids, like, our age take that stuff for granted,
Yeah, for
having
real.
good people in your corner
Yeah.
is everything.
Dude, it's been a major blessing. I've had literally the same friend group since like 7th grade, and so like we play euchre probably 3 nights a week at Applebee's. Like literally, we go to
Oh, yeah.
Applebee's like 3 nights a week.
Let's go.
From like 9, half price apps.
Half
You
price
got to
apps,
have them.
baby.
So like
Today, we're America's favorite neighbor, Applebee's.
9 o'clock to midnight, like we're doing that. And
That's awesome.
dude, but it has been great to have the same group of friends, because they hold you accountable, and they're not afraid to be honest with you. And so if you're doing something stupid, or if I'm thinking about making a career move or going somewhere that's just not right for me, they're gonna be like, hey man, don't be dumb, like that's not for you. So it's definitely nice to have that. Got a lot of good faith leaders in my corner who are constantly checking me and keeping me where I'm supposed to be, keeping me accountable, but also like just edifying me and building me up in the right ways and saying like, you can definitely do this, you can succeed here, or hey man, that's way outside your reach. Don't even do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, like that's pretty much typical day for me is I'm just trying to be connected to all my people as often as I can. But also just working and honing a craft, because in the Bible it says you don't work, you don't eat, right? So at the same time, like I gotta work, I gotta do that. So definitely on there. So
Really inspired. Like, honestly, there's a reason that you're on here. The people that we ask on have usually inspired one of us in some form of way. And I think the first time I spent time with Shad, I asked if I could tag along and go to a high school football game with you and watch you film. And he let me do that. And I pull up to his house, and he's moving cases of water that was out on a pallet. And you're like, yeah, this shipment came in. I can't remember entirely what, but you were trying to save those waters and get them to people who could use them. And I was like, man, this is a good guy. He took me in his home, drove me in his Jeep to the game, and just really, like, seeing what you do, hearing you talk about your circle of people, I just thought that was super cool, and it's inspired me to think about the people that are around us, and really, developing those relationships and focusing on following Christ and spending that and sharing that with those around you, and just kind of living life with a purpose. And it's fun. Like, it's just so relaxing and calming to think about.
Dude, for real. I mean, it was cool, because it was nice to have somebody when I met you in class. And I was like, yo, like, well, it was kind of cool, bro. Like, this is awesome. Like, because there's not many people that, like, you connect with in class.
Right, yeah.
And I think
it was like Zoom, too.
Yeah,
like,
it was Zoom class. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. It was Zoom class. But, I think that's something that I really enjoyed kind of growing up with the guys that I've been around, is that they are very personable and they want to talk to new people. They want to meet new people. They want to do these things. And so growing up, I really didn't want to talk to new people. I wanted my guys. I wanted my friend group. I'm just trying to be that. And they really forced me outside of that, and like out of my comfort zone. Like, hey, you need to talk to new people. And I was in show choir too. So like all through high school, we're going to these competitions where there's just thousands of kids. And then, I got my buddies like, hey, let's go sit with this group. Let's go talk to these. I'm like, I don't really want to do that, but I guess, And some of my best friends are like, those people, and they're around the country. Outgoing. And it's crazy. And so, I really think that getting those relationships established, and like you were saying, people that inspire you, like, I think that a lot of times we take for granted the people around us, like in our own areas too. Because you look at Tom Brady, you look at Michael Jordan, you look at those are inspiring people, but at the same time,
you're never going to meet that person.
And I've got a friend in, I say friend, he's much older than me, he's my grandpa's age, but he's a Medal of Honor recipient from my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And so, meeting him, that's one of my heroes, because I'm a military kid, grew up in that, and it's one of my heroes. And knowing what he did and hearing that, like, having those people around you at that level is different. But at the same time, I've got friends who are starting their own businesses, that are doing insane things, that are coaching sports teams to state championships, and they're in their 20s. Like, you can be inspired by the people around you just as much as somebody who's done something extraordinary.
And I think that's so exciting when we're so young.
Yeah.
And you're inspired by people, and like the fact that I can be inspired by you and you're so young, or like, that's so exciting to me, because it's like
incredible,
embracing our youth.
Yeah.
Like it gives you a sense of pride. Like when you're doing cool stuff as a young man.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's really... I totally feel you on that. And as well as like the creative community, in terms of like video and graphic design and stuff like that. Like, there's a great group of people like on Twitter that I've been like internet friends with, and I'll reach out to them and ask like, hey, what's going on? Like, how can I up my videos? How can I do better? What can I do here? But they're just generally like super great people.
Yeah.
And they see that younger generation, and they're like, hey, these kids are really trying to make something here, and they could take it over. Like, and so it's something I try now to like repay in my own way, like to people my age, because all these people have been so great. like, what's the point in me keeping all that knowledge to myself?
That's really
like,
cool. Yeah.
Other people got to eat too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I say something here? Pros and cons of social media. You bring up social media and
Dude, yes.
how you use it in that network. I want to hear your pros, your cons. We can all kind of share our own experiences.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You go ahead and start us
Yeah,
off.
so obviously you guys know, like, there's tons of pros to it in the sense of, like, you know, you've got your podcast, you got your
Yeah.
brand, you're trying to build it, you're putting stuff on social media, you're getting views, you're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of things. That's great. Like, it's awesome. In my experience, I've found that it's worked really, really well for me, but it's, again, kind of boils down to who you are as a person outside of social media, because you can post whatever you want. You can post the highlights, you can post everything, but, like, you know, who are you at home? Like, what kind of fruit are you producing around people at home? So
Yeah.
I try to be as authentic as possible on my social media with what I'm doing, who I'm posting, you know, stuff like that. But I think it can be a really good tool. I think obviously our age kind of lives on social media, and so I think there's a lot of eyes on things. Like, for me, if I'm posting videos, I posted our first football video from this season. It was our first loss of the season, and I really didn't want to make the video because we had just gone 6-0. We were playing a tough Decatur Central team, and that's, like, our biggest rival. They had just beat us, and I was like, dude, I do not want to make this video. Like, I'm PO'd about this. I don't want to be on here right now.
Yeah.
And my mom actually came into my room and she's like, when's the highlight video coming out? And I was like, I'm not making it. I'm like, that's so dumb. Like, we just lost that game. We shouldn't have lost it. You know, I'm ticked. I don't want to make this video. And she's like, well, what about the parents that want to see their kids, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they can get over it. And she's like, you have a horrible attitude. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I
People
do.
in
I
the
gotta
corner
check.
calling
I gotta
you out.
check it.
That's what you need to hear.
And so I ended up sitting down that night and begrudgingly edited this video and posted it on socials. And I don't know what happened, but, like, within 13 minutes, it had 25,000 views. And so I was like, that was more than any of the wins I had posted all season.
Wow.
Like, I was averaging like 6,000 to 8,000 on the rest of them, but it got like that. And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And so I woke up the next morning and it was at 40,000, and I was like, okay, like, that's insane. Like, you know, I never would have made this video and put it out there. But so it's stuff like that. Like, it can be a very powerful tool. Like, you can get the views, you can get people to buy your streetwear, to buy whatever you're selling as an individual.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it can be very, like, I mean, you see it with different people, whether it's, you know, Britney Spears or Dave Chappelle or those type, like big stars, right? But it affects their mental health a lot.
Yeah.
And it just tears you down. And so I think there's times where it can be very, very kind of hurtful and very kind of, in a way, not like, I'm not one of those people that I'm not very emotional. Like, just straight up, I hate emotions. Like, just that's just me though. Like, it's not the toxic masculinity thing. I just don't like being emotional.
Yeah.
And so if somebody says something to me online, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, or somebody hates on a video I make, I'm like, oh, they're probably right. Like, you know, it probably does suck.
Most
Like,
chill dude I've ever met.
it probably does suck, right?
He's
Like,
like, you're the most chill person I've ever
That's
met.
like the perfect way to look at that. Like, it
He's
really
like,
is.
he just
Dude,
like, yeah. What's up?
it's
Hey.
never, it's not always been that way. Like,
Right.
I grew up in high school, like, angry all the time. And I hated that version of me. And I felt like I had hurt a lot of my friends unintentionally with just how I was, because I was so competitive at everything I did, because I felt like I had to prove something. When really, if you're just authentic and you're just being yourself and you're just doing what you're called to do, you'll find your purpose. You'll find what's going on. And there's really no need for you to be, like, super arrogant or any kind of, you know, angry about stuff. And so,
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still get mad when I'm playing basketball. If I miss a shot or something, I'm ticked. But like, that's just something I had to learn. And so, I mean, even this past year, I had a couple guys from other football teams around the state that were commenting on my videos, and they were like, yo, these guys are horrible. You know, if you want to see some real football, come down here. And I was like, so, you know, they're jawing in the comments, but I'm like, hey, you know, like, you know, what if I did come down to shoot a game or something? How would that, you know, that'd be cool? And they're like, oh, for real? Like, you want to come down here and shoot a game? I'm like, dude, yeah. Like, give me a date, give me something. I'll absolutely come down and shoot. And so just being authentic like that and just being really kind of listening to people, I think it's a great connector.
Can I give an example?
Yeah,
so
for
like
sure,
when
dude.
I reached out to him first time to go film a game, he was like instant, like, yeah, no problem. When can we do that? It was like so open to, you know, let's figure out a date. Okay, great. You know, come to my house. We'll drive to the game. Boom, done deal. I reach back out again. I'm like, hey, you want to be on our podcast? Yeah, absolutely. What dates work? And we just, And Shad has been really open about that. So I think that's a good
man.
example of
Yeah,
exactly what
absolutely.
you're talking about.
Yeah,
So.
and that's something that I used to say, like, and that's it's a hard balance. I feel like I'm stuttering my words there, but like it truly is, because I read a book called The Last Arrow by Erwin McManus. He's a pastor out at this church in LA, and one of the chapters in there talks about saying yes. Say yes to last minute things. Say yes to different opportunities that you might not say yes to. And he tells a story about how a friend of his called him and was like, "Hey man, I've got an extra ticket to the World Cup final. It's in Brazil, I think it was at the time." He's like, "Do you want to go?" And he's like, "Well, I mean, that'd be, that's really cool. When do we leave?" He's like, "Plane leaves in an hour." And he was supposed to be going to do something else with his family or something like that. And he was talking about that decision that he had to make. And he said, I promised myself I would say yes to different opportunities. And so he said yes. He goes, he ends up meeting a bunch of the players, getting on the field. And so like just random, out of the blue experience. And so I try to say yes to things as often as I can. Yeah. Obviously, if it's going to be something that like you feel like there's some bad intent or something behind it, you'd be like, I'm not doing that. But at the same time, you have to have your own peace and your own time and your own pace to things and a good balance. So when you're doing stuff, you can't just keep saying yes to everything.
Right.
Because I a couple years back had some really bad burnout, and I went to my doctor and was like, I can't sleep at night. I'm stressed. Like I'm feeling sick all the time. What am I doing? She's like, well, your body's literally killing itself because you won't stop going. And she's like, I'm literally prescribing you 4 weeks of doing absolutely nothing. And I was like, you can't do that. And she's like, no, I can. And so the doctor list literally said like 4 weeks of mandated rest. And I was like, that's one of the biggest things I needed in my life, was just to see that clearly and like find rest in those things. And so now it's a lot easier to balance out. So
yeah, I think balance is so important in like every aspect of your life, because like especially like social media, I feel like for me personally, I'm always almost happier or like have more peace when I'm like, you don't see, because on social media people only post the things that are
the highlights.
the highlights,
absolutely.
like you said, the highlights of your life. And like when I have been off of social media, like off of Instagram, Twitter, whatever it may be, and you're not seeing like smiles and all these people, like and only when they're happy, it's just like I feel like I'm definitely so much more at peace. And it's like, but it's hard to stay off of those things when everyone around you is doing them. And
dude, 100%. I'd get that.
It's not like peer pressure, but it's like you just feel like you're missing. Like it's like FOMO almost, because you feel like you're missing out on so much. And like I haven't had Twitter in probably like 2-3 months, and there's some things that I don't necessarily hear about, but it's like I feel so much more at peace because you don't see all of like the negative things that everyone, like opinions, and I don't know. And like it's something that can be used for good, obviously, but I mean it's
and I think truthfully, kind of along those lines, if you can tailor that experience to be what you want it. And so a lot of people thrive off the drama and like the random stuff that's going on and the bad news and things like it's a different feeling for them. But like I went through and I unfollowed a ton of accounts. I muted a bunch of words on Twitter, like just different stuff that I knew was going to be an issue. Right. And I went through and I tailored the experience to be like very specific. That's smart. So for me, it's like I only see sports, I only see racing, and I only see like creative content, and that's it. Like that's what I see. And so it's nice in those senses. At a lot of places you can do that, but like Instagram, the algorithms and different things, like you can't count on it. But like you said, like you see people in real life, and it's like they could be, if you know somebody personally, they could be posting that they just had the biggest party ever. It's crazy. People were there and it was awesome. And then you see them the next day and they're, so distraught because they've got $60,000 in student debt and they have no job. Yeah. Like, cool, you threw the party. That's awesome. But at the same time, like, that's not your biggest priority right now.
Yes,
and so I just think that social media is a great tool. I've seen it absolutely wreck a lot of people, but I've also seen it bring some really good stuff. I mean, you guys see this stuff where athletes will go to prom with somebody because, or a daddy-daughter dance because their dad passed away, or, super fans who are 90 years old going to the Super Bowl next week to watch the Bengals play. Like, it's cool stuff like that never would have happened if you didn't have social media. But there's a lot of bad that comes out of it too. So I just think it's a hard balance, but I think if you can tailor that experience to be what you need it to be, it can be an incredible tool.
All right.
So
creative mind here. We got some movie lovers. I know me and John love movies.
do you?
Do you like movies?
Dude, I do. And I have some friends who actually produce films like on like legit stages and
Nice.
stuff, and that's really cool. I don't know, like I'm not one of those people though that can watch a movie and like rewatch it.
Oh, really?
Like I can't rewatch a lot of movies. Like if I see it once and I like, especially if it's like a mystery type movie,
Yeah.
right? Like okay, I know the
You know
outcome
what's
now.
gonna
Like I
happen,
can't
yeah.
watch it again and
Oh,
know what
wow.
that is. And that's
Okay.
just me. My girlfriend, she could watch a movie, 5-6 times. Sometimes
Yeah.
I gotta bite it and just be like, all right, cool, we'll watch it again. But like I do enjoy the creativity of it, and I try to watch more movies now through a lens of like, what was this person trying to create? Like what
Yeah.
feelings are they trying to invoke? What are they doing? Instead of just being like, man, that sucked. Like, okay, yeah, maybe I didn't like it because it didn't fit my personal likes or my personal things, but at the same time, like, what was that person's creativity?
I like
behind
that
it?
a lot. Like
And so-
thinking through the eyes of
Yeah.
the director
Yeah.
or the producer.
Yeah, and there's a few movies I can watch, like Saving Private Ryan. I just like that one because it's so like raw.
Yeah.
and I like that one a lot. But
Oh, yeah.
I'd say the movie that I've seen more than any other movie in my life is Tron Legacy,
Oh, my. The new one or the old one?
the new one from like 2008 or whatever it was.
Yes.
That movie I've probably seen
Dude.
close to 500 times. Like
Yep.
it is
Wow.
insane. We watch it on like family trips and stuff. Like I don't know what it is about it. It's just
Good.
it was so ahead of its time. I
Oh,
feel like.
Yeah,
It was.
And dude, I could watch that movie over and over and have
we
no
love
problems.
that movie.
yeah,
Dude,
that's
it's
a
so great.
fantastic movie.
Love
That
it.
movie is fantastic. Do you have like a producer? Because obviously I know you create content. Like, do you have like a mentor or someone that you like kind of have looked up to? Maybe in films or like someone that films other athletes, if that makes sense. Kind of someone that you've looked up to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, there's a lot of great sports creatives out there. There's a guy who is the head creative director at Texas University, and his name's Derek. And that dude can produce just some insane content. Like it's beautiful. Like truthfully, like they put out content, like their football team's not that great, but this content, man, makes it look like they are an all-star movie like team, like that you would only see on
Right.
a movie screen. Like it's so good. And the thing about him is he's just super personable too. I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, I feel like my videos suck. I was like, what can I do? He's like, scrap that mentality. He's like, you're going to have some stuff that is bad. He's like, that's just how it is. But if you use that as a learning tool and you go back to the drawing board and you look and you go, okay, I don't want to produce that kind of stuff again. How can I be better?
Wow.
And, he gave me a lot of good resources, a lot of people to watch on YouTube, a lot of those things. So there's some good mentors out there that if you just reach out to them and ask, they have such a vast like knowledge of what's going on. And they're totally willing to share that with you too. Especially if you do it in a sense that's like very cordial and
Absolutely.
you're connecting to them. Like I think I DM'd him on Twitter, but I sent him like essentially a formal email through Twitter DMs and just
Okay.
asked him that,
Yeah.
and he was like right away responded.
That's awesome.
So yeah, there's definitely some people out there. More recently, a guy I've been working with, his name's Keller. Keller is hilarious, dude. He's so funny, but when it comes to like doing actual work, dude is so smart. Like, and I think he's a year or two younger than me even, but he's crazy, and he just gets into a timeline and he goes and it is so quick and efficient and it looks incredible. If you ever get on YouTube and look at Wildcat Gaming, he does some of his vlogs, and Keller edits all of his vlogs,
Okay.
films and edits them. But like, dude's insane, and so I've kind of got him in my corner as well, because he works part-time for Glitch since Wildcats with Glitch. And so if I'm doing shoots or doing things, I can shoot him a text like, hey man, I feel like stuff's coming out weird. What's going wrong? And he'll walk me through camera settings or different editing processes and be like, okay, try this. So definitely like my own personal editing game has gotten a lot better this year just by interacting
Yeah.
with even him.
And I
So
love that because I edit now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
recently got the PC. I'm really trying to dive deeper. I'm working in Adobe Premiere.
dude, love Premiere.
And it's like I watch a lot of YouTube videos to just figure things out.
Yeah.
Like I literally I feel like you can do anything. Like,
Yeah.
You just show up on the screen. You're like, I want to do this. How do I do that? Let's watch a YouTube video,
Right.
figure it out, really learn it,
Yeah.
and then you just create it.
Yeah.
And what's so cool about it is it's so customized. It is so creative.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize there is no right or wrong way to edit anything.
No.
If you can visually create something on the screen, it
Yeah.
does not matter how you got from point A to point
Dude,
B.
for real. Yeah.
It's there. It's on the screen. If it looks cool, you did it. Good job.
Well, one
So
thing
it's
that like even recently, like I think it was Formula One posted some photos that they had taken, and the photographer that took them intentionally had a ton of motion blur. He had a shutter speed set, kind of high, so that way when it went through, it would blur the car a little bit, but you would catch like one thing in that frame, and it would be just the driver's helmet in focus, but everything else is blurry. And they posted that, and it just blew up like crazy. And some other, I think it was NASCAR, posted some that were very similar to that, kind of looked like a double exposure. It was weird, like it was neat though. But they were like, you could give a 4-year-old a camera, and a 4-year-old could take those kinds of photos, like super blurry and stuff. But it was the simplicity of it that was like, man, sometimes we just overthink stuff so much. And a lot of people were hating on it in the comments, and that's exactly what they were saying. They're like, my 4-year-old could take these photos. I'm like, cool. Have your 4-year-old go take these photos. Like, get them started early. Like, they're learning.
It's art. It's
it's whatever you
creativity.
want it to be. That's what art is, man.
And
Like,
it's so personal to you too.
Yes.
Like if we all three shot the same video and we went and edited it, it would all be different. Like the way we edited it would all be different.
Yeah.
And that's like
Because
so I think that's just so cool that like that's how it is.
yeah, I mean,
It's
you
personal.
watch talking about movies, right? Like if you watch a movie and you watch it and there's no director on it, doesn't tell you who it is. You could tell who it is just by the style.
Yes.
Like it's a Scorsese film.
Christopher
that it's
Nolan.
a Christopher Nolan film. You know that it's a Michael Bay film with all the explosions.
you
like
just can tell.
Yeah. And so that's the creative part of it, is like you can see stuff. And even in the smaller, quote unquote, smaller creative world of like sports, you can see a sport edit somewhere and people will know who it is. Like SportsCenter will post a video or something or a photo, and you'll have a ton of creatives in the comments, because SportsCenter doesn't ever tag whoever took the original video.
Yeah.
They don't. And so you'll have a ton of other creatives in the comment like, hey, this looks like a at whoever video, and then sure enough it's that guy's video. So
To add on to this, I feel like we've talked about social media. We've talked about like creativity and the way that people express themselves through art, edits, whatever. When I was a senior in high school, my English teacher we were talking about literature, American literature. And, when you hear that word, you think of poetry or all these poems and old writings. And everything. But then when you really dig into it, you see back in the day, when all they had was a pen and paper, that was a way that they expressed themselves. They would write poems, write song lyrics, and it's like, it's so cool that what literature is, American literature is like, it's things that people express themselves and they can relate. Like, you use it as a form to relate. Like, think about looking at a piece of art and you can just dive into that, and what do you feel from that? It's a connection that you make with the person who created it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so talk about the evolution of literature.
Right.
What is it today?
Yeah.
Think about when you scroll on social media, you see all these videos, all these pictures, memes, whether it's funny, whether it's sarcastic,
Serious,
that's literature.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be in the literature books
Yes.
20 or 30 years from now.
Yeah,
They're going to be
and
talking about
absolutely.
not poetry, but they're going to be talking about all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much of it.
Yeah.
With the tech.
Yeah, it's
knowledge.
unlimited, yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
It's wild, and like you were saying, it's personal to each person. It's different types of mediums that you use, but that's yours. And kind of like you were just talking along the lines of painting and stuff. Like I'm not an art guy. Like if I go to an art museum, I look at, oh, that's creative. Like that's cool. But like people that go and sit and stare at the photo, with their hand, like, oh yeah, this is, I could tell. Like I've never been able to go into a museum and look at something and be like, oh yeah, like I feel what's going on here. Like, but when it becomes personal for you, if it's a scene that if it's a farm painting or something, and you grew up on a farm, like you're going to be able to smell that. You're going to be able to see it. You're going to know what's going on because you relate to that.
Yeah.
And I was super blessed this year. I think, did you see the Indy 500 painting at my house? Did I show you? Did I show you that?
No.
Well, I went to the state fair, and there's this incredible piece that was in one of the art buildings, and my brother kind of pointed out to me first. He was like, "Hey, look at that," because I'm a big IndyCar guy. So he was like, "Yo, look at that," and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Like,
That's cool.
it's the cars coming into turn 1 during the Indy 500. The stands are full. It's just insane, and it was painted, completely oil painted, and just looked beautiful. And I was kind of standing there just staring at this thing for like 10 to 15 minutes because it was like. I could hear it. I could hear the engines. I could smell, the gasoline, the tires. I could hear the people all around me, the snake pit. Like I could hear all that. I could feel it in my soul. And I reached out to the artist and I was like, hey, like, I'm just wanting to let you know, because I'm a creative myself. I was like, I appreciate when people reach out to me and say stuff, but like, I have never once looked at a piece of art and like got stuck in that.
Wow.
So, but that was the first time I've ever like seen it and felt that experience. And I've been going to the Indy 500 for every year, since I was born. My dad took me when I was a baby, and even like just every year I've gone. So I'm on year like 23 of going to the 500. So like I've been a lot, and it's personal to me.
Yes.
And the artist posted my email that I had sent her, and she's like, it's great as a creative to, when people reach out to you and tell you these things, because that shows what your work is doing, what it's supposed to be doing. And about a week later, she emails me back. She's like, hey, what's your phone number? Can I call you? And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, why is this artist reaching back out to me? I was like, and so I was like, yeah, sure, here. And I was driving somewhere, and I was actually driving to a wedding, and she calls me, and she's like, hey, is now a bad time? I was like, no. And she's like, oh, well, I posted your response or your email that you sent me on Facebook. And she's like, I got a really good response. A lot of people loved it. And an older lady who wants to remain anonymous actually purchased the painting and is giving it to you.
Whoa.
And I was like, no way. Like,
that's so cool.
Not even and it's a $5,000 painting.
No way.
Yes. And I was like, you're not, like, I was like, that's such a, like, you're not even, and she's like, no, I'm serious. Like, she said that it moved her so much that it moved you, that she wants you to have it. And so it's hanging in my bedroom right now.
Cool
That is
story.
incredible. Wow.
And it was hanging downstairs in our house for a while, kind of in the main area, and everybody that came over was just loved it. And some of my friends who aren't even IndyCar fans were staring at it, and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, you need to experience it in person. Wow. Like, you got to see it. And so it's hanging in my room now. It's super crazy, incredible. But like, those
You'll
types
keep
of
that
interactions,
forever,
that's
man.
social media.
Yes,
That's what
yeah.
you can do with that. That's what the personal feel that you get from your art that just brings it out, the creativity. And it sometimes challenges other people, like you said, back full circle to the inspiration thing, right? Like, I could see somebody's painting like that, and then I want to try to paint, and then I'm figuring something because I saw that and I felt emotion, and I want somebody else to get that. So yeah, it's just incredible. Like, the different types of art that there are, kind of your literature thing you're saying, like, anything and everything can be art. I was actually at my barber yesterday, and I'm thinking about it, getting a haircut.
It's art.
It's art.
We were just talking
It's
about
art.
that.
Yeah, we
It
were
is
gonna have
art.
this conversation.
And we were sitting in the chair, and this lady was sitting in there, and her son was getting his haircut, and there was a poster on the wall for an art fair or something like that. And she's like, is poetry art? And we were like, I honestly never really thought about that. Like, if you're having an art competition, like, who says you can't put poetry in? Who said you couldn't write a book and send
There's
it?
no
Like,
rules.
there
are
art,
no rules.
art is whatever you want it to
art.
be. Like,
That's why it's so beautiful.
yeah. And so that was kind of, I was like, honestly, I've never thought about it that way. Like, I've never thought, I've just automatically assumed in my head, like, yeah, that's art. Like, I've never really thought about it until somebody actually was like, would you consider that art? I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I think I would.
So the moral of the story here is, to the people that are listening,
Yes.
find a hobby and express yourself through it.
Yeah.
That is,
and whatever
that
it
what
is.
art
And whatever
is.
it is.
It doesn't matter
have to be crazy.
what it is. My brother, my older brother, he's into woodworking.
Yeah. Like,
He loves it. He just started it. He started it. Him and his wife moved to a new house. They started doing what he was just made, a pen, this, that. Now he's getting more equipment. Just, he likes doing it.
Yeah, man.
It's calming. It's
Yes.
fun. You can create a product, and it's just expression, and it's something that
Yeah.
connects you to other people.
yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
and that's kind of like what I'm getting from you.
Yeah.
Like, just hearing all these stories about your circle, what you're passionate about,
what you do and why you do it. That's
Dude,
crack it. That's what crack it cold
and
is.
everything in my life boils down to just the simple, like, love, like in general. I know it sounds like
Right.
super cliche because everybody talks about, it's all about love. Like, but truthfully it is. And I think if you love the people around you and you invest in them and they will invest in you just the same, like there's nothing that you can't achieve. And so I know, like, one of my life verses is the greater love has no man than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. And we tell that to our basketball team a lot, the one that I coach. And, we're like, we're not asking you to literally lay down your life for your friends. In some cases, if you're in the military or something, you might have to. You might. But if it's just everyday life, you're not legitimately asking you to lay down your life
Right.
for somebody else. What you're saying is, I'm going to put myself aside to serve you, to be a servant leader, to love you in a capacity that you feel worth something, and it inspires you to go do something great because somebody took the time to love you.
Yeah.
And I think that our generation has missed a lot of what love like really is. I know you hear that a lot, like on Twitter or something. You'll see it, and people are like, I think we're in the wrong generation. I think we're in the right generation.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
gotta
But
step up.
I think we just got to return our values back
Yeah.
to what love like truthfully is.
Right.
Like, and at the end of the day, it's not who it is, it's not what it is. Like, it is being present, and it is believing in the people around you. Like, at the end of the day, that's love, and sacrificing your own personal whatever for that person to go the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. And
Fantastic.
so I try to put that into everything I do as often as possible. And I've been super fortunate, like I said, to have just a circle around me that lives that same type of mindset and pushes that forward,
Right.
because it just makes things a whole lot easier. You have disagreements. It's not like, oh, we're done. Like, the whole friend group's broken up. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, hey man, let's go. I'm really mad at what you said last night. Let's go grab lunch tomorrow and talk about it. I just want you to know my perspective on what it is. And then you get to an understanding, and most of the time it's fixed within like a
Right.
day or
Yeah.
two. And that's just something you have to be comfortable and okay with, is just laying down your pride and yourself, kind of whatever, and just loving the other person.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for sharing, man. That's
that's incredible.
yeah, sorry to
And-
get a little
really
deep
great.
there. I don't know if that's like
no,
but
that's what we want.
but yeah, man, like just
Exactly what we
being
wanna hear.
personable, just being
Exactly.
being there. So
And like going back to your story, if we can, about how you reached out to that lady.
yeah,
The simplicity of being nice. Like,
dude, yes,
think about how if you may have not, if you worded what you said to her differently, like you could have just said, "Oh, I love your painting," not necessarily not saying it in a mean way, but not diving as deep as you did.
yeah,
And that's just like, you can doing that with anyone. Like, you may not know them, but just offering like a kind gesture, like, I love
Yeah.
what you did, and this is why I love it. And it seems people make it so complex, I think, sometimes, but the fact
Yeah.
is, like, just a simple gesture like that can go a
Change
really,
the
really
world.
long
Yes.
way.
Change
Yeah.
the world with
Yeah.
simple acts of kindness.
And that,
Yes.
yeah, I'm not trying to be like too,
No, you're
you know
good.
what I mean?
No,
but
but
it's just like, it's
totally.
it's so simple.
that's
but
what it is. And truthfully, for me, like, things that I hold on to most, like I like handwritten letters. Like,
Yeah.
me personally, I
Yeah.
love to write them. I love receiving them. And like, I remember in middle school, one of my best friends, my dad coached her in volleyball, and she wrote him a letter. And he still, to this day, carries it on the inside of his uniform pocket every day he goes to work, because it meant so much to him, like what she said. And I've got a few letters that I have, saved in envelopes, tucked away in a box that, if I need some encouragement, if I need some uplifting, like, I know I can just open that, and no matter how many times I read it, like, it's gonna refuel my passion for what I'm doing. So just the simplicity of even just that handwritten letter,
Yep.
just writing somebody a letter and saying, hey, like, I was thinking about you, because you shoot by a text. Hey man, I was thinking about you today. Cool. Like, yeah, that still does, sometimes that does the trick, but like,
Yeah.
if you write somebody a letter and you're like, hey man, I'm proud of you, super glad that you're my friend, super glad you're in my corner, like,
Yeah.
they hold on to that because
Right.
you had to take the time to do that. I can type a message to you out that's 3-4 paragraphs in 30 seconds.
Right.
But to handwrite out a letter that's a
Takes some
page or
time.
two long,
Mhm.
I could take 40 minutes to an hour if you're really thinking about it and doing so. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a simplicity of it, but it's like you said, it's how you say things to
Yeah.
people. It's how you reach out and do just general kindness in that sense, like can go however far you want it to go.
Exactly.
So.
No. Yeah. That's so true. That's so true.
Any final words? Last remarks? Any closers?
No, man, I would just say, like, continue to chase what you want. Like, I mean, in the sense of, like, even your podcast, right? Like, that's something you guys do. That's something that's a passion to you, kind of like you were saying. If you got a passion, chase it. Like, do that, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks about it. Truthfully, if you're happy with it and it brings you joy, like, do that. But at the end of the day, like, if you got good people in your corner, if you got good friends and you're building good relationships and you're loving people and you're chasing your passions, like, you're going to get where you need to go. You don't need to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next. Like, yeah, it may be stressful some days. You may have some things that are just completely out of your control that you have no clue what's going on. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pay the rent tomorrow or so. You're going to have those days too. But if you got the right people around you and the right, support groups around you, it's going to feel like that's something that at the end of the day you don't have to worry about, because you're like, oh no, it's going to come through. Like, awesome. I know we're going to succeed. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on today, and hopefully some good content and stuff for you guys.
Thanks,
but
this has been a blast.
Yeah, man,
this is really
it's
good.
Been great.
Really good to hear from you. Seriously.
Shad White.
Shad
Absolutely.
White.
Shad White. Follow him on social. We'll put the handles
Thanks,
up.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, for sure.